An inheritance. Two siblings at war. A story you've seen before, right? Wrong. What if, in the middle of the fight, they found a secret safe? And what if, inside, there wasn't money, but a photo of a brother they never knew they had? The fight for the fortune ended there. The search for their family was just beginning. Don't go anywhere because the end of this story will surprise you. The secret of the safe. An unexpected bond. The prologue. The fight for the crown. Imagine a mansion. Not just any mansion, but Blackwood Manor, a bastion of tradition and wealth that stood, imposing and somber, on the highest hill of a small coastal town in California. Its dark stone walls and pointed roofs seemed to whisper stories of generations of power and secrets. The air inside on that summer afternoon was heavy, not with the heat, but with tension, greed, and newly settled grief. Elias Blackwood, the patriarch, was gone. A shrewd businessman, a respected philanthropist, but to his children, an enigma. His death, though expected after a long battle with illness, did not bring peace, but rather the beginning of a war. Elias Blackwood was a man of few words, but great influence. He built his empire from nothing, transforming a small fishing company into a seafood conglomerate that dominated the West Coast. His fortune was vast, but his family relationships were a minefield. He had 2 children, each a distorted reflection of his own ambitions and failings. Arthur, the firstborn, was the image of his father in terms of cunning and ambition, but without the morality that sometimes guided Elias. He saw the inheritance as his by right, the recognition of years of subservience and waiting. And Clara, the youngest, a free-spirited and generous-hearted woman who had distanced herself from the family years ago, tired of the coldness and obsession with money that permeated Blackwood Manor. She sought a simple life, dedicated to art and community, far from the suffocating shadow of her father. That afternoon, Arthur and Clara were gathered in the mansion's library, a room filled with old books and the smell of aged wood. The heavy furniture and dark velvet curtains seemed to absorb any trace of light or joy. The presence of Mr. Alistair Vance, the family lawyer, a man of grave countenance and monotonous voice, only intensified the atmosphere. He held in his hands a leather-bound document, the last will and testament of Elias Blackwood. The reading had been brief, and the result predictable. The fortune would be divided equally between the 2 children. But equality, for Arthur, was an affront. He, the son who stayed, who sacrificed his personal life for the family business, should receive more. Clara, for her part, felt uncomfortable with the vastness of the inheritance, preferring just enough to continue her projects. They fought, not with shouts, but with sharp words, scornful glances, and the calculated coldness they had learned from Elias himself. The dispute over the inheritance, which should have united them in the pain of loss, only separated them further. Arthur accused Clara of being a parasite, of never having contributed to the family. Clara accused him of being a slave to money, of having lost his humanity. Mr. Vance observed the scene with a weary resignation, accustomed to the dramas of the Blackwood family. But what no one knew, what not even the lawyer knew, was that Elias Blackwood had left one last riddle. A secret hidden in plain sight, in an unexpected place. A secret that, if found, would not divide, but unite. Get ready, because this is the story of how they fought over the inheritance. But what they found in the safe revealed an unexpected bond and united them forever. The heirs, 2 worlds, 1 fortune. To understand the depth of the discord between Arthur and Clara and the impact the discovery in the safe would have, it is essential to delve into their lives and the expectations each held regarding Elias Blackwood's legacy. Arthur Blackwood. The firstborn, Arthur, was the personification of unbridled ambition. From childhood, he was shaped to take over his father's empire. Elias trained him rigorously, instilling in him the belief that power and wealth were the only indicators of success. Arthur absorbed this lesson with fervor. He sacrificed his youth, his relationships, and even his own happiness for the sake of the family business. He was a ruthless negotiator, a cold strategist, and a man who saw the world in terms of gains and losses. For Arthur, the inheritance was not just money, it was the validation of his life, the crown he believed he had earned. He saw Clara as irresponsible, a dreamer who had abandoned her family responsibilities in pursuit of utopian ideals. The idea of sharing the fortune equally with her was a personal affront, a devaluation of all his effort. Clara Blackwood. The youngest, Clara, was Arthur's polar opposite. She possessed an artistic sensitivity and an innate aversion to the corporate world. From an early age, Clara felt suffocated by the cold, calculating atmosphere of Blackwood Manor. She found refuge in painting, music, and volunteering in underserved communities. Her passion was to create, not to accumulate. Elias saw her as a disappointment, a daughter who refused to follow the path laid out for her. Clara, in turn, saw her father as a man trapped by his own wealth, incapable of experiencing true joy or human connection. She had moved away from the family years ago, seeking an authentic and meaningful life, far from the suffocating shadow of the Blackwood Empire. For Clara, the inheritance was a burden, a source of guilt and discomfort. She wished only for enough to fund her social and artistic projects, and the idea of fighting over money disgusted her. She saw Arthur as a man blinded by greed, unable to see the value of life beyond numbers. Elias's will, which divided the fortune equally, was a blow to Arthur and a discomfort to Clara. For Arthur, it was a betrayal, a denial of his worth and sacrifice. For Clara, it was a cruel irony, forcing her to confront the world she had tried to leave behind. The dispute over the inheritance was not just about money. It was about years of resentment, of unmet expectations, of divergent paths that had turned them into strangers under the same roof. Mr. Vance, the lawyer, had tried to mediate, but the rift between the siblings was too deep to be filled by words. They were trapped in a cycle of accusations and defenses, each convinced of their own righteousness, unable to see the other's perspective. The mansion, which should have been a home, had become a battlefield, and Elias's will, the ammunition. The hidden safe, a final enigma. After the reading of the will and the heated argument, Mr. Vance, with a weary sigh, handed Arthur and Clara a sealed envelope. "Your father," he said, his voice monotonous, "left one last instruction. This envelope contains the key to a safe he kept secret. He insisted that you two open it together, and only together, after the reading of the will. There is no mention of this safe in the main document, but he was very clear about the importance of its contents." Arthur and Clara looked at each other, the distrust still palpable in their eyes. A secret safe? Elias was known for his eccentricities, but this was something new. The key, an old brass piece with intricate carvings, looked more like a relic than a security key. The envelope also contained a small, hand-drawn map, indicating a location in the library. Under the fireplace, it read in elegant handwriting, "The past awaits." Reluctantly, they followed the instructions. They moved the heavy bookshelf that covered the wall next to the fireplace, revealing a small metal door camouflaged in the masonry. It was an old, cast-iron safe with a combination dial and a keyhole. Arthur, with his strength, tried to force the door, but Clara stopped him. "He said to open it together, Arthur, and he left a key. There must be a reason." They inserted the key into the lock, and with a soft click, the mechanism moved. The combination dial, however, remained a mystery. "It must be a date," Clara murmured, examining the carvings on the key. Elias was always one for riddles. Arthur, impatient, tried some obvious dates. Birthdays, the company's founding date. Nothing. The safe remained sealed, a final challenge from Elias. Mr. Vance, who had remained silent observing the siblings' interaction, finally intervened. "Your father was a man of symbols and of memories. Perhaps the combination is not a number, but something more personal." He pointed to a small, almost imperceptible carving on the bottom of the key, a tiny rose. Clara, with a flash of recognition, remembered. The rose was her mother's favorite flower, Elias's late wife, who had died young. Her wedding date, her birth date, her death date. They tried every combination related to the rose, but the safe remained closed. Arthur, frustrated, was about to give up, but Clara, with a sudden intuition, remembered a story her mother used to tell about Elias. A story about a secret garden he had cultivated for her, a place where they met before they were married. The date they met. They tried it, and with an audible click, the safe opened. The sound echoed in the library, a sound of promise and mystery. What was inside? More money, jewels, or something far more valuable than any fortune? The unexpected contents. A window to the past. The inside of the safe did not contain stacks of cash, nor glittering jewels, nor financial documents. Instead, there was a small cedar wood box worn with time, and inside it, an unexpected treasure. Not a material treasure, but a treasure trove of memories. There was a leather-bound diary, yellowed and with worn pages, a stack of letters tied with a faded ribbon, and a single black-and-white photograph. Arthur and Clara, their curiosity overcoming their animosity, picked up the items. The diary belonged to their mother, Sarah Blackwood, who had passed away when Clara was very young and Arthur a teenager. The letters were exchanges between Elias and Sarah, dated before their marriage. And the photograph. The photograph showed a young, smiling Elias and Sarah in a field of wildflowers with a small baby in Sarah's arms. A baby that was neither Arthur nor Clara. They began to read the diary and the letters. Their mother's words revealed a love story they never knew existed. Elias, the cold and calculating man they knew, was, in the pages of the diary, a passionate young man, full of dreams and ideals. Sarah, their mother, was a vibrant woman, full of life and a kindness that seemed to have been erased from the family's memory. The letters told the story of a forbidden love, a secret romance that blossomed before Elias's marriage to their mother, a marriage arranged to consolidate the Blackwood family fortune. And then, the truth about the baby in the photograph. The diary revealed that before marrying Elias, Sarah had had a son whom Elias had adopted as his own, but who had been sent away to be raised by distant relatives to avoid a scandal that could tarnish the Blackwood name and compromise Elias's rise. The baby's name was Daniel, and he was Arthur and Clara's older brother, a secret Elias had kept his entire life. The shock was indescribable. This wasn't about money, but about a life, a history, a family bond that had been denied and hidden for decades. Arthur, the firstborn, discovered he was not the first. Clara, the youngest, discovered she had an older brother she never knew. The anger over the inheritance dissipated, replaced by a flood of emotions, confusion, sadness, and a strange sense of connection to a past they never knew existed. The safe had not revealed a fortune, but a family much larger and more complex than they had ever imagined. The lost brother. The search for Daniel. The discovery of Daniel changed everything. The dispute over the inheritance, which once seemed so vital, became insignificant in the face of this secret's magnitude. Arthur and Clara, for the first time in years, found common ground. Their curiosity about Daniel overcame their animosity. Who was he? Where was he? How had he lived all these years, unaware of his true family? They delved into their mother's diaries and letters, searching for clues. They discovered that Elias had kept in touch with Daniel for a time, sending money and ensuring his education, but always anonymously through intermediaries. The last mention of Daniel was from years ago, when he had moved to a small town in the countryside, seeking a quiet life away from the hustle and bustle of the big city. With the help of Mr. Vance, who, though surprised by the revelation, felt a deep respect for Elias's decision to reveal the truth in his final act, they began the search for Daniel. The task was not easy, Daniel had changed his name, seeking anonymity. But Arthur, with his business investigation skills, and Clara, with her intuition and her network of contacts in artistic communities, worked together in a way they never had before. They followed leads, interviewed people, and slowly, a picture of Daniel began to form. They discovered that Daniel had become a talented carpenter, a simple and honest man who lived a modest but happy life. He was known in his community for his kindness and his skill in creating beautiful pieces of wood. He had no idea of his true origin, nor of the fortune his biological family possessed. He had grown up in a loving but humble home and had never wanted for anything. The search for Daniel took them to places they would never have visited, to people they would never have met. They saw a side of life that was completely different from their world of luxury and privilege. Arthur, the ruthless businessman, found himself helping out in a local workshop, learning about the dignity of manual labor. Clara, the artist, found inspiration in the rural landscapes and the simplicity of Daniel's life. The journey to find their brother was, indeed, uniting them in an unexpected way. The meeting. Truth and reconciliation. The meeting with Daniel was a moment of restrained emotion. They found him in his small workshop, working on a piece of wood. Arthur, always direct, was the first to speak, introducing himself and explaining the reason for their visit. Daniel, initially suspicious, listened to the story with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Clara, with her sensitivity, handed him the old photograph and their mother's diary. As he saw the photo of his biological parents, and as he read his mother's words, the truth began to sink in. Tears came to Daniel's eyes. Not tears of anger or resentment, but of a deep emotion. He had grown up without knowing his true origin, but he had always felt a void, a missing piece in his personal puzzle. The story of his mother, the woman who loved him and was forced to part with him, touched his heart. He felt no anger toward Elias, only an understanding of his father's complexity. And he felt no anger toward Arthur and Clara, only surprise at the existence of siblings he never knew he had. Arthur, for the first time, showed vulnerability. He apologized for his arrogance and his blindness. He explained the pressure Elias had put on him, the constant need to prove his worth. Clara, in turn, hugged Daniel, feeling an instant connection with the brother she never knew. That hug sealed a new beginning for them. The anger and the dispute over the inheritance were replaced by a bond of blood and mutual understanding. Daniel, for his part, showed no interest in the Blackwood fortune. His simple, honest life was what he valued. He accepted the existence of his siblings but made it clear he did not want to be involved in the family business. He asked for only one thing: the opportunity to know more about his mother, to read her diaries, to understand the woman who had brought him into the world. Arthur and Clara promised to share everything and more. They promised him a family that, though imperfect, was finally coming together. The reconstruction, a new legacy. The return to Blackwood Manor was different. The tension, the greed, was gone. There was a new atmosphere of respect and understanding. Arthur, transformed by the journey and the discovery of Daniel, began to reevaluate his priorities. He realized that true wealth was not just in money, but in human connections, in family. He began to delegate more responsibilities in the business, seeking a balance between his professional and personal life. He became a more present brother to Clara and a mentor to Daniel, who, though he didn't want the fortune, accepted Arthur's help to expand his carpentry workshop and create an art school for underprivileged youth. Clara, in turn, found a new purpose. She used her share of the inheritance to fund social and artistic projects in her community, and also to create a foundation in her mother's name, Sarah Blackwood, dedicated to supporting artists and preserving her mother's memory. She and Daniel spent hours together, reading Sarah's diaries, discovering the incredible woman she was, and finding inspiration in her life. Mr. Vance, the lawyer, observed the transformation of the Blackwood family with quiet satisfaction. He had witnessed generations of disputes and secrets, and now, finally, he saw a chance for redemption. He helped Arthur and Clara restructure the inheritance, ensuring that Daniel was legally recognized as an heir, even if he didn't want the fortune. Blackwood Manor, once a symbol of coldness and greed, began to transform. Clara and Daniel created an art studio and a carpentry workshop on its grounds, bringing life and creativity to the place. Arthur, though still focused on business, began to see the mansion not as a burden, but as a home, a place where his family, now expanded and united, could finally find peace. Elias's legacy. A late redemption, with the siblings united. The figure of Elias Blackwood began to be re-evaluated. Their mother's diary and the letters revealed a side of Elias they never knew. A passionate young man, a man who was forced to make difficult choices to protect his family and his legacy. They understood that the secret of Daniel was not an act of cruelty, but a desperate attempt by Elias to protect his son from a scandal that could have destroyed his reputation, and, consequently, the fortune he was building for his children. They discovered that Elias had faced threats from powerful business rivals who could have used Daniel's existence to blackmail him and destroy his company. He had made a painful choice, sacrificing his relationship with Daniel to protect his family's future. The safe, with its unexpected contents, was not just a riddle. It was a final plea for forgiveness, an attempt by Elias on his deathbed to reveal the truth and unite his children. Arthur and Clara, by understanding the complexity of their father's decisions, found a new form of respect for him. They realized that Elias, despite his questionable methods, had loved his family in his own twisted way. The inheritance, which was once a source of discord, became a symbol of unity, a legacy that they, together, could shape for the better. They decided to use the fortune not just for their own projects, but to create a foundation in Elias Blackwood's name, dedicated to supporting families in conflict and promoting reconciliation. The Blackwood case became an example of how the truth, however painful, can be a catalyst for healing and unity. The family's story, which seemed destined for ruin by greed, found a new path paved by understanding and fraternal love. The safe, which should have been the source of more discord, became the turning point, the gateway to a new era for the Blackwoods. The epilogue. A new dawn, Blackwood Manor, once a symbol of coldness and greed, now radiated a new energy. Sarah Blackwood's secret garden, which Elias had kept untouched, was restored by Clara and Daniel, becoming a place of gathering and celebration for the family. The laughter of children, Arthur's and Clara's grandchildren, echoed through the halls, a sound Elias had never heard in his lifetime. The Blackwood family, now with Daniel fully integrated, was an example of resilience and redemption. Arthur, with his strategic mind, and Clara, with her humanitarian vision, transformed the seafood empire into a model company, with ethical and sustainable practices focused not only on profit but on the well-being of its employees and the coastal communities. Daniel, while maintaining his workshop, became a valuable advisor to the family foundation, using his wisdom and unique perspective to help others. And so, the story of the inheritance that almost destroyed them became a legend. A legend about how love and understanding can overcome greed and resentment. What they found in the safe was not gold or jewels, but a brother, a history, and an unbreakable bond that united them forever. The truth, however much it hurts, sets you free. And in the case of the Blackwoods, it also brought them together. If you know a family story that was divided by secrets but united by the truth, or if you yourself have found an unexpected bond in your life, share your experience in the comments. We believe every story has the power to inspire and transform. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will surprise you and make you reflect on the true meaning of family, legacy, and the unshakable power of love.